I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Senator Lindsey Graham blasted fellow Republican Rand Paul over his decision to block a $40 billion Ukraine bill on the Senate floor Thursday. Describing Russian President Putin as a, quote, war criminal, Graham said, quote, if you think he is satisfied with Ukraine, you're miscalculating him like we did in the last century with Hitler. Here's more from the South Carolina Republican.
Ready? Madam President,
Senator from South Carolina.
I'd like unanimous consent to enter into a colloquy with my colleagues, Senator Whitehouse and Senator Blumenthal.
Without objection.
Thank you. We will get into this in a minute, but I'll respond to something that was said just a few minutes ago. What would it cost America if Putin continues to slaughter the Ukraine and gets away with it? What kind of world do you want to live in? Let's see if I've got this right. I can understand not wanting to get involved in wars. If you've ever been in one, if you've ever been in a war zone with any time period, you understand war is a horrible thing. If you've ever been in the military, you understand some of your buddies don't come back when you have wars. But what I don't understand is this idea that not only are we not going to engage in a war against a thug and a bully like Putin, but when somebody like Ukraine is fighting like tigers, we're not going to help them either. So this idea about this aid package costing too much, put it in context of what happens to the world if Putin continues to rewrite the map of Europe. If we don't get Ukraine right, then China will invade Taiwan, and 90% of all the semiconductors and high-end chips come out of Taiwan. Why do you have the cops? Because if people go up and down the streets breaking into stores and ransacking the community, nobody wants to live there. I'd rather have the rule of law versus the rule of gun. Sometimes you got to pay a price. The Ukrainians are paying the ultimate price. They're fighting like tigers. They're dying by the thousands to stand up to an enemy of the United States and mankind. Putin is a war criminal by any reasonable definition. And if you think he is satisfied with Ukraine, you're miscalculating him like we did in the last century with Hitler. In June of last year, Putin talked about the Russian Empire being recreated. Well, it's just not Ukraine that he considers a legal fiction. It'd be Moldova. And when you look at his view of recreating possibly the former Soviet Union, there are NATO nations in his crosshairs. What does it matter to the United States if Europe is in a constant state of turmoil, that you have Russia toppling one democracy after another? It means a lot to us. We can't live in a world that way. Or at least I choose not to live in the world that way. To the American people, $40 billion is a lot of money. But if we can stop Putin in the Ukraine, it'll be the best money you could ever spend. Let's don't be penny wise and a pound foolish. They're running out of ammo. They're kicking the Russians' ass all over the Ukraine. They're doing the fighting on behalf of freedom itself. And we should be the arsenal of democracy. The EU should spend more. The Germans are giving lethal weapons. Everybody can do more. And there's a problem with baby formula. I'd like to get more baby formula on the shelves, but letting Putin win in the Ukraine doesn't help the problem with babies here in America. If you care about raising your children, you need formula, but you need a world where you can travel and trade without chaos. Who's going to run the world in the 21st century? The communist dictatorship in China, people like Putin, or a world order where the rule of law really matters more than the rule of gun. So this package has been stalled, but it will get over the finish line. To the people in Ukraine, Senator Paul's request to have a inspector general overseeing the money actually makes sense to me. I don't know why we didn't do that before, but his argument that this package is way beyond what the market should bear misses the point of what we're engaged in here. The outcome of Ukraine matters because if you don't stop Putin there, he keeps going. This doesn't end. Have you learned nothing from World War II? Go watch a movie about World War II. How many people appeased Hitler to the point that 50 million people eventually died? Putin is not going to stop in Ukraine unless somebody stops him. Here's the good news. His army was oversold, and with the weapons we've delivered to the Ukraine, plus our allies, the Ukrainian military and citizenry are dismantling the Russian military. It would be an enormous blow for freedom, stabilize the world if we could stop Putin in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians are not asking us for soldiers, they're asking us for weapons. And if you don't think Russia under Putin is a foe to the United States and all we believe in, you haven't been paying attention to what's been going on for the last 20 years. So we have a moment in time here to go all in terms of economic assistance. Their economy is in shambles because they're under siege. They're fighting like tigers. The weapons we've given them, they've put to good purpose. The Democrats and Republicans are now united around the idea it is a good thing to help the Ukraine. To my Republican colleagues who vote against this package, what is your alternative? Don't go to Poland anymore. Don't go to the Ukraine and say, we're with you. If you vote against this package, and there's a million reasons to vote against anything, you're missing the point. The world hangs in a balance here. If we don't get Ukraine right and stand up to Putin, there goes Taiwan. I'm tired of being lectured to by people who have no understanding of the world in which we live in. The mistakes of the last century are being played out on our screen every night. So to those who believe that we can just let it go in Ukraine, boy, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. The world is going to be turned upside down, and the converse is true. If we can stop him in his tracks, help the Ukrainians who are doing all the fighting and dying, then China is less likely to go into Taiwan. Now, this is one of the biggest moments in the 21st century. Where are you? Whose side are you on? Oh, it's too much here, it's too much there. I had one senator who will remain nameless on our side. Why do we have money for food? There are 227 million people in the world knocking on famine's door. Between droughts and wars all over the World Food Program, run by Governor Beasley from South Carolina, is completely under siege. 40-something countries in the world have over 50% of their grain supply coming from the Ukraine, and they're out of production right now. It is in our interest, ladies and gentlemen, to help people when they're starving so they don't do the things that they may do to feed their families that are bad for us. What would you do to feed your family? Would you take money from Al-Qaeda and ISIS if it was the only source of money available to feed your family? So we live in a very dangerous time where one thing affects the other. This package was put together quickly, and I'm sure there are things in this package that could be done better. But we're living in real time here. The president's ability to send weapons really expires in a couple of days. So what I hope will happen is that we'll unite around the idea that Putin's the bad guy and the Ukrainians are the good guys. And if we lose this war, we're going to regret losing this war because it won't end in the Ukraine. So to my two colleagues on the Democratic side, thank you both. You've done something that is hard for people around here to do. Talk about victory. Victory for Ukraine. Senator Blumenthal, there's been no stronger voice of standing up to Putin and making him pay a price. How many people does he have to murder? How many war crimes does he have to commit until we realize this needs to stop? We had this same experience with Adolf Hitler. People excused his behavior, wrote it off as he just wants to get German-speaking territories back. No, he wrote a book about what he wanted to do. He wanted to kill all the Jews and remake Europe and create a master race for people on planet Earth in his own image. What is Putin trying to do? A bit less ambitious, create the Russian Empire and the former Soviet Union anew, crush democracies that have had a chance to go a different way. And are you surprised that the Ukrainians are fighting? Who the hell would want to live under Putin's thumb? Would you? Would you want to live in Putin's Russia? Would you want him to be your leader if you didn't have to? People who've gone down the communist road are literally willing to die because they don't want to raise their children that way. So we're going to have a discussion here in a moment about some things that we can do that will matter beyond money. The American taxpayer should not be the only source of help to the Ukrainian people. Count me in for that. There's a proposal that was left out of this bill that would empower the Department of Justice to go after Putin and all of his cronies and take from them their yachts and their villas and their dachas, sell it and put the money into Ukraine to buy bullets. That got left out of the package. To the American people, I get it. Other people should be doing more. There's a bipartisan consensus here that with additional resources in the hands of the Department of Justice and some legal changes, we could go after billions of dollars of ill-gotten gain and plow it back into the Ukrainian war effort, money coming from thugs and thieves in Russia to help the brave people in the Ukraine. But that fell out of the package. To my colleagues in this body, what the hell are you thinking? Why would you do that? Why would you take out of the package the ability to hunt down the oligarchs and take their stuff away from them that they bought with stolen money to help the Ukrainian people, another source of revenue other than the American taxpayer? We're not going to let that go. Finally, there's an idea that Senator Blumenthal and I have that maybe it's time to label Russia a state sponsor of terrorism. Why? Because they are. After 20 years of mass murder on an industrial scale, the Wagner Group is roaming the planet, which is a proxy, according to our Treasury Department, of the Russian military. They're in Africa today doing all kind of horrible things. Russia is propping Assad up, who is one of the four countries that are considered state sponsor of terrorism. Without Russia, Assad would have fallen. So we have an idea that doesn't cost any money to designate Putin's Russia as a state sponsor of terrorism, and it would waive sovereign immunity so people who are a victim of his terrorism could take him to court, and it would put Putin in a club that he deserves to be in. Iran, North Korea, Syria, and Iran. We would add Russia. Now, we couldn't get that in the package. We're not going to stop. It would be good to let the Ukrainian people know that we see Russia in the hands of Putin as a terrorist state. We'd like to tell everybody who's on the fence, America's made a decision about Putin, and there's no going back. If he's still standing when this is all done, and we forgive and forget, the worst is yet to come. So from my point of view, Putin's Russia needs to end. The Russian people need to fix this problem. Until they do, we need to keep all the sanctions in place and up the ante. Labeling Putin's Russia a state sponsor of terrorism is a good place to start. Going after the ill-gotten gains of the oligarchs to help the war effort is a good thing to do. We're not going to quit here. To the people of Ukraine, most people in this body, not all, are with you. Because we understand your fight makes our world in America a safer place and a better place to live. So with that, I'll ask a question to my colleague from Connecticut. Why do you think Russia is a state sponsor of terrorism, and what can we do to make that happen?